But in 28 years of driving truck, the score between God and death stands for God 11, death 0. One of the more, about 2 weeks before I married my wife, I was training a partner for a little mom and pop outfit out of Buffalo. And it was getting toward the end of his shift, not 5 miles away from where he and I were going to switch drivers. And he nodded out behind the wheel right there on I-70, about 5 miles away from the I-57 split near Effingham. And he nodded out just for a few seconds, went through a guardrail, down a 50-foot embankment, and blew a hole in that woods that you can still see today, big enough to stampede a herd of Abrams tanks through without no problem. We destroyed a brand new Century class Freightliner. I was the first driver for that thing, and Victoria and Richard, I believe, can still remember taking the plastic from off of the chairs, driver's seat and the shotgun seat, as well as off of the carpeting. It was that new. I was told that the cab compartment on that thing was structurally designed to withstand impact. Well, it works. Still, it wouldn't exactly have volunteered for that experiment. I was in the back in the sleeper. I was not wearing the restraining system. There is no reason in the world why I should be standing here telling you guys this story today. There's no reason both of us should have survived, but we did. The people that came and cleaned up that $1 million mess, and it was a $1 million mess. I mean, we scattered our cargo of broccoli all over the side of that hillside, and we made every rabbit in Effingham County very happy. Probably is. I haven't exactly got out there and checked it out. But let me tell you, 11 different times I've been in situations like that, and God has preserved my life. I have steered out of jackknives, for those of you that know anything about tractor trailers. You don't steer out of a jackknife, so I'm going to tell you right now, that was not my skill as a driver. That was the good Lord looking out for me, and my wife back home praying her guts out for my safety. So yeah, we do serve a very powerful and a very awesome God, and I am living proof of that.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anywhere? Don't be afraid. We're family. We can talk to one another. I know I'm a living testament to God's grace. I shouldn't even be walking today. Anybody?
Well, God's delivered me from my addiction. He's actually delivered me before, but I've overridden my convictions and I took it back, But it is truly as easy as lifting my addiction. I just had to accept God's invitation, and each day I just, I'm learning more and more and feeling more and more in love, each day I do, because I like that last song because, and I like what Travis has said about, wrath and the Father's wrath. It's not about that, and I've always, very strong discipline, but I've always had love, but, and I always felt I had love, but, I think I had more wrath than I had love, I mean, once you start sitting back, so that, and that's something that, the Father's really, and especially in in a lot of stuff that we do within, just basically at the front lines of the battles, that's something that, that loving hand, and that's where I'm at, and that's how I'm going. Thank you.
Anybody else? Has God been good to you? Tell us.
I mean, most of you know this story, but I know there are some people here this morning who don't, and about the shoebox thing. And please forgive me for those of you who have heard this. I was asked to become an Operation Christmas Child church relations team member. So my job basically is to encourage churches who already are involved in Operation Christmas Child. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it is a ministry of Samaritan's Purse whereby you get yourself a shoebox and you fill it with useful things and fun things for a child in another country, like personal hygiene items, school supplies and toys. But the most important thing about that shoebox is that it carries the gospel message, and often into places where it's very difficult for the local pastor to openly preach about Jesus. So I was asked to be this church relations team member, so my job is to encourage those who already participate to do more, and for those who aren't participating to become involved. And then I was also asked to be our centre coordinator. So last year, most of you will know that I threw out this number, having read, it wasn't my idea totally, having read to you the story of this little Texan church that went, of 25 members, that went from packing, I forget the exact numbers, let's say 145 to 500. And then, I won't tell you the next bit. So that's why I threw out, I thought, goodness, if a little church in Texas can do that, of 25 members, we're more than 25 members, we can do 500. Now, I have to tell you, that scared me because I knew that I was throwing out such a number that it had to be God. You know, I forget who said to have dreams so big and desires so big that if God doesn't show up, it's going to be a failure. Well, that was the whole point. It wasn't about me and it wasn't about us in doing the 500. It's all about God and allowing God in his wisdom to use us to send 500 messages of hope to 525, to 525 children, often living in situations beyond our imagination, who have witnessed and are living perhaps in horrible circumstances, may have had to flee for war reasons, whatever. So it's our opportunity to participate in the Great Commission. Most of us can't go to those places, but this is one way that we can be involved in sharing the good news. But that was scary for me. And I hope that in achieving that number, it encouraged you to remember and to stand on the fact that we do serve a big God. And I think so often we shortchange ourselves because we don't think big enough. We limit ourselves to our humanness, forgetting that, as Travis said, he is a good, good Father. He doesn't bring us to repentance out of his judgment or out of his I'm angry with you attitude. No, it's his eternal, abiding love that draws us so that, as he said, we can get rid of the junk in our lives and have so much more. But he is such a big God, and I think we need to think bigger thoughts. So, yeah, it was scary for me. You thought I was crazy. I thought I was crazy, but we're going to do crazier things. Let's believe that. Let's stand on that and really believe it, because he is a good, good Father.
Yeah.
Okay, hi, I'm Destiny, and I'm a victim of sexual abuse from my father and my brother. I'm 16 now, and the abuse started when I was 6. And not only was I involved with that, but I was constantly surrounded by drug abuse and alcohol abuse. And when I was 10, my grandpa started having me go to church with him, and I didn't honestly really believe that it was going to make things different. But the more and more I went, things started to change in my life. And kind of one day out of nowhere, everything just kind of completely changed in my life. and I was taken out of that situation with my dad, and I was placed in, it's been multiple foster homes, but I think now this is the last one on my rock, and God's finally put me in a place where I can spread my wings and fly.
Good morning. I'm Maggie or Margaret, given name Margaret Mary. And I just want to praise the Lord because in thinking about who is my Father, He has taken me step by step, and just like Destiny, and golly, that just blows my mind. That's a beautiful thank you to the Father. I only got an inkling of a personal relationship with Jesus when I was having my babies. So you figure I'm surrounded by 3 little kids and exhausted and early 20s. And so that planted the seed. And then I didn't do too much with it. I mean, I opened, it was probably 5 years later that I opened the Bible and tried to start reading the Bible. But what I want to tell you today is He has brought me through so many challenges and things that I didn't expect in life. Plenty that were blessings, others that were not. But now what He's done is, by my drawing so close to Him because of difficulties in my own life, He's actually taken me back to where I was, for instance, 5 years old. And how, whether it was from 5 years old and then next 8-year-old memories I have, that I can see that all along He was right there by my side. That there was time after, and to think that I would have this kind of recollection has to be a God thing. That somehow in the back of my mind, I can remember silly things, just like a priest stopping me on the street when I was about 7 and saying, "Margaret, I just want to know why you're always smiling." and I didn't have a particularly settled home life. And the only thing I can remember is I looked up at him and I said, "I don't know, Father, I just do." So that's what I wanted to tell you this morning, is He is a good, good Father. He is the daddy I always dreamed of.
Anyone else? Come on up.
I'm Vicki Rood, Brian's wife. In 1994, I was a single mom with little boys. I was in a homeless shelter in Buffalo, New York. I was raised Catholic, and I always had that faith, even the tiniest bit, but I was lost. There was a bunch of folks that were going to get together and have a prayer meeting, just a little service right there in the shelter. And I was part of that. I started praying with them, and I remember just this overwhelming feeling of wonderful something coming into my life. And I didn't understand, because I was raised differently. This was just totally new to me, you know. And so I met the director after that, and she put me in her office, and she told me that I was, oh my God, I can't, it was a really interesting word. Brian, do you remember what that word was? I had to look it up. But eventually, I I got the boys, and we went and lived in Lancaster, New York, and I was on welfare with my boys, and I didn't want to be there any longer. I was there, and I had gotten a little part-time job, and I got a little old wagon, station wagon, and I decided to take a drive into the country. We were living in the city, and we could drive good 15 miles into the country. And on the way there, there's this town called Alden. Well, there was this place called the Diamond Motel. And then up further was this other motel called Folkert's. And I would drive the boys further into the country and turn around. But this calling kept for me to go back to this Diamond Motel. And I've cleaned houses before, and I was thinking, well, you know, I could go and see about if I can work at this motel. The boys went with their dads one weekend, and I got my wagon, and I went into Alden, and I went to the Diamond Motel, and I said, ma'am, may I speak to the owner? And she goes, I am the owner. And I said, this is my story. I'm a single mom, and I don't want to be on welfare no more. I need a job, and I need a place to live for me and my boys. She goes, I can help you with that. I said, great. So I started working at the Diamond, and she owned both motels. And we had us set up over there. And I started talking to this older fella, and he was one of the folks that I cleaned for, and he was telling me about this fella he knew. He was a truck driver. He was a nice fella. And, you know, I met him finally, and boy, he was scary looking. I said, holy cow. I said, this guy's a foot taller than me, you know. But I was told that he was a good Christian fella, and he went to church. I wanted to go to that church because he seemed like a nice fella. We had no interest at all. I just wanted, he had a better vehicle than me, and he could get me to that church. And so Brian took me and the boys to Alden Community, not Alden, Darien Lake, Darien Center, North Darien. And they had a nice time, and it was just a wonderful feeling. I said, this is it. And the next weekend, this fellow over here, he was on the road. Well, I guess I had to take the wagon in. So me and the boys hopped in the station wagon, and we went back to North Darien. And it was such a peace. I felt such a peace there, like God had just led me to this spot. And I kept going, and even when Brian wasn't around, I still kept going, and I just got more and more filled and just so much joy. And we had our first date on October 20th, 1996, and we were married. It will be 19 years, March 21st. And he brought this fella into my life, and he raised my youngest son like his own, and Richard is 25 now. And he loves him like his own.
Could I throw one thing in there on that one? Ladies and gentlemen, I was adopted myself. Back in the 1960s, that was a dirty little secret. But I thank God, and my brother and I, we caught a lot of nonsense from that growing up, particularly when you're the only adopted kids in a little one-horse town of 200 people. In fact, the county has more cows than it did people, and trust me, the cows are the more intelligent of the two species. But I see now, later in life, years later, how God had a purpose in that for me. And that was that, especially the way Vic and I synergized together. I couldn't do this alone. There's no way on God's green earth That wasn't God's plan from the get-go. Just read Genesis. But every time, whether it was extended family or whether it was just friends of the kids that had the bad luck of having some pretty lousy parents, we've always accepted them into our home and treated them like they were our own children. And I am really humbled that God has given me the opportunity to serve in such a fashion. And babe, ain't no way on God's green earth I could have done that without you.
Webster's dictionary of legacy: something transmitted by or received from an ancestor or predecessor or from the past. Something transmitted by or received from an ancestor or predecessor or from the past. The definition of legacy. Everybody in this room's got a story to tell. Everybody in this room has got something to say about what God's done in their life. Whether they say it or not, there's something there. I started a Bible reading program this year where I'll go through the Bible in a year. And I got into Genesis where this person begat this person and this person begat this person. And it's a spot where people normally just turn the page and they go on and don't even give it a second thought. But I started putting a pencil to this and adding up years and figuring out who might have known who. And who might have been here when this person was alive. You know, we think of these people as Adam living and dying, and then Enoch lived and died, and then Noah lived and died, and they're probably separated by generations, which not the case. I came across this interesting little chart on the web, and if we start counting time from the day that Adam was created, we know that Adam was 930 years old when he died. Noah was born in the year 1056. Noah didn't know Adam, but his father and his grandfather did. Think about that. And we're told in the Bible of a man named Enoch who walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. He got so close to God that God just said, okay, it's time for you to come. Took him. Never died. And that's often puzzled me and perplexed me, and I've wondered, how in the world did this man get so close to God in a time when the world was falling apart and things were going south and people, their thoughts were evil continually? That's what the Bible tells us in the days of Noah, and leading up to the days of Noah, that's exactly what happened. And how did Enoch, from all of that, pull godliness and such a relationship with God that he was able to walk so close with God that God said, okay, you just come and be with me? Enoch was born in the year 622. Adam was 622 years old when Enoch was born. They probably lived in the same town. They probably knew each other. And if you think Adam left the garden with no remembrance of what it was like to walk with God, you're sadly mistaken. That's something Adam carried with him until the day he died. And here's a man called Enoch who was able to sit down right here in the same room with Adam and talk to him about what it was like to be in the garden and walk and talk with God. And he got it. He figured something out, and he got on a path. He was put on a path by Adam, a path that was about to lead him probably back into the garden. We got no proof of this, but it's a good probability. Enoch learned something from Adam that drew him so close to God because he heard it firsthand. Enoch was not around when Noah was born, but Enoch's son Methuselah, he was. And if you think Methuselah lived his life without hearing what Enoch had to say, what's the likelihood of that? Methuselah died the year of the great flood. Now think about this. Methuselah was born in the year 687. He knew Adam himself. And he carried that information from Adam directly up to the time of the flood. When Noah was told to build an ark, Adam's grandson was still alive. I love to do this, Joe. I'd love to stand here behind this microphone in this pulpit and look out across this crowd, and you see that look on their face, and you know the wheels are turning. They get it. They're thinking. It's great to see that, to know that I'm able to do what the Lord wants me to do, to make you think about this. Legacy. Adam passed it down directly to Enoch, who used it and got so close to God, he was taken. Passed it on to Methuselah, who carried it right up until the day of the flood. He died the year of the great flood. As a matter of fact, some interpretations of his name, Methuselah, meant that when he died, the flood would come. So there's a good possibility that Enoch, when he named Methuselah, was prophesying that when this child dies, God will destroy this earth. Wow. That's an aha moment. That God was trying to tell people, don't let your thoughts be evil continually, and don't lead up to this, because there's a way out. Enoch did it. Why can't the rest of you do it? I want to tell you a story about a man by the name of John Turner. John Turner was a big man. I've seen pictures. Big guy. Everybody in Dent County, he lived in Salem, just the other side of Salem a little ways. Everybody in Dent County, Crawford County, Iron County, and Washington County knew John Turner. Everybody. You can still go into those counties today and find people and tell them about John Turner. Oh, you're talking about the big John Turner. Yeah. Big John Turner. There was a time in Ironton, Missouri, in Iron County, when John Turner beat a man to death in a bar fight. And they put him in jail. And nobody in the county would testify against him. Everyone was that afraid of John Turner, because they knew the moment they testified against him, when he got out, he'd kill them. And since there was nobody to testify against him, they had to let him go. It's the kind of life John Turner lived. He was a mean man. He'd just as soon kill you as look at you. And if you ever crossed him, he would kill you, because he got by with it once and he'd do it again. There's a little spot in the road out on Highway 32, about 30 miles this side of Salem, 25, 30 miles, called Bixby, Missouri. Anybody know where that is? There was an afternoon when John Turner was riding through Bixby, and someone, to this day they don't know who it was, someone pointed a rifle out a window of an upstairs window on a store building and shot John Turner dead in the street from off the back of his horse. And he traveled with 2 really mean dogs. And when John Turner hit the ground dead, the people of Bixby couldn't even get to his body to pull him out of the street. Those dogs kept them at bay. So they had to send someone on horseback from Bixby 25 or 30 miles over to Salem and tell them to come and get John Turner's body. I mean, it was a little over 2 days he laid in the street until his family got there to pull the dogs back. They could put his body in a wagon and take him to Salem and bury him because of those mean dogs. See, my grandmother was one of the godliest women you'd ever want to meet. One of the first people to ever take me to church. And she taught me how to study the Bible. I was sitting at her feet one night, and she had her Bible in her lap. And this is what she's doing. I said, Grandma, what are you doing? She said, I'm reading my Bible. And I climbed up in her lap and I said, no, listen, now, I'm in school and I know how to read, and this ain't how you do it, okay? You start over here and you read this page and you read this page. If you flip over here and over here and over here, it doesn't make sense. She said, yes, but this is the Bible. And that's how it makes sense. And she taught me that night about studying this word. And it's a lesson that's been with me since then. That's been probably 50 years ago. How do I know about John Turner? My grandmother told me. He was her grandfather. My grandmother's mother was John Turner's daughter. She was married to a missionary Baptist preacher, my great-grandpa. See, I could very easily have turned out just like John Turner if I chose to do so. Because I can go into Dent County and Reynolds County, Iron County, Crawford County, Washington County, and I can tell people I'm related to John Turner, and you can see that look in their eye. You mean the big John Turner? Yeah. And they get a certain amount of respect for you because they know the family. But I made a choice when I was 15 not to turn out like John Turner. And the reason I made that choice was because my grandparents and my parents passed their legacy down to me, which was this right here. And I've always said it, that I am part of a generational blessing. This Bible tells us that if you don't do what the Lord commanded, that curse will be carried out to the third, even to the fifth generation. But God commanded and put a blessing over Abraham, and he put no end to it, brother. You see, there's got to be a choice made. If you choose to live by the statutes here in this word, there's no end to the blessing and the generation after generation after generation. If you choose to live like Big John Turner, God's going to revisit 3 to 5 generations out and see if somebody's ready to make a decision. It's a promise in the Word. Matthew went to great pains to lay out the genealogy of Jesus Christ. And one such person that he laid out was a lady by the name of Rahab, who was the daughter of Salmon. And we can go back into Moses' day when Joshua was leading the children of Israel into the promised land. They came into a city called Jericho that was heavily fortified, and they sent in spies to see just how we can take this city. And a lady named Rahab, who was a harlot, took those men in and hid them and got them out of the city alive. And when they took the city, God said, take Rahab and her family out, because of how she had treated these spies and how she had helped God's people move into the promised land. And not only did she get blessed by that because she lived with the Israelites, she was blessed by that because she became the mother of Boaz, who was a kinsman redeemer in the book of Ruth. And not only was she the mother of that kinsman redeemer, but she was also married to Boaz, or she was Boaz's mother, and Boaz was in the direct lineage of Jesus Christ. So here we have a harlot who was taken out of that situation and out of that city and adopted into this Jewish tradition, and ends up in the direct lineage of Jesus Christ. So my point being this: everybody here has got a past. Everybody here has got a past, just like Rahab. That's something Rahab didn't want to talk about. And that's something that Matthew never mentioned, because it didn't matter. Once she was taken out of that city, once God told them to take her out of that city and adopt her into your family, what she did in the past was gone. And it's never mentioned again in this book. She was made righteous because of her actions, how she treated those spies. So folks, it's never too late. Everybody here's got a past, and I don't care what your past is. Your present can change the past. Your present can overcome the past and give you the future that you want. The wheels are spinning again. Because like I said, I could have made a decision to turn out just like John Turner. And I could be running 4 counties and everybody know my name for all the wrong reasons. But folks, I'd rather have everybody know my name because of this. I don't care if it's in 4 counties. I don't care if it's just in this church. I'd rather be known as a man of this. I'd rather be known as a man who believes this Bible. From Genesis all the way to maps. It is true. You ever read maps? Most boring book in the Bible. It's worse than He begat He. I've seen this. I've seen this in action. And I know what it can do in a person's life. I've seen it, brother. I'm 56 years old. And in 1975, I gave my heart to the Lord. That's over 40 years of seeing this. And in 40 years, I've never seen it fail. Do you hear me? I have never seen it fail. I've never had anybody come to me and prove this to be a lie. Been a lot of people over the last 40 years try. but nobody succeeded. I've taken this for what it is, and I've applied it to my life. And I've taken people under my wing, and I've told them what it's done for me and seen them apply it to their lives. And I've seen how it changes people for the better. I've seen people grow. I know people today that are in pulpits because they applied this to their lives. That's why it's so vitally important that you open this book and read it and understand it for yourself. And if you don't understand it, grab somebody who does and bring them alongside you so they can explain it. Even if you don't like the answer they give you. Listen to it anyway, because it is the living Word of God, and it will never let you down. You won't see good times all the time. My uncle used to say, God never promised us a safe flight, just a safe landing. How true is that? This is what I want to challenge you to do. Decide today what your legacy is going to be. What are you going to pass down to the next generation? Is it going to be a total belief in this? Or are you going to teach them, well, this might be true, but this I'm not sure about? Are you going to be known as the person who believed and trusted no matter what came? Or are you going to be remembered as the person who built their house on sand and the first sign of trouble, it crumbled? See, nobody's perfect. I can't tell you how many times I've had to go back to this and straighten myself out. Nobody's perfect. Just because you stick your nose in this word doesn't mean that you're going to live a perfect life. We're all prone to mess up. As a matter of fact, we're just about created to mess up. I had a good friend that I'd mentored him a bit. Great songwriter, great guitar player, great singer. And he pulled me off to the side one day and he said he was coming out of an alcohol addiction and had turned his life over to the Lord. And he pulled me off to the side one day and he said, I've been watching you. I didn't know if that was good or bad. But he said, I want to pattern my life after you. I said, well, Rick, if you want to be a total screw up, go right ahead. Knock yourself out, man. He said, no, I mean it. I mean it. I want to live the life that you live. I told him, you can't live the life that I live. You've got to live your life with the Lord. I mean, you can take what I've learned from this Bible and you can apply it to your life. And Rick was doing just that. We lost Rick about 3 years ago. Died in his sleep. Took an over-the-counter cold pill and it reacted with one of his medications. And he died in his sleep unexpectedly. But I know where he is. And I know one day I'm going to see him again. And I'm going to be able to hug his neck. And he'll be able to say thank you for what I passed on to him. As a matter of fact, when I get to heaven, I want to see thousands of people come and say thank you for what you passed on to me. That's what I want my legacy to be. Now, I've got kids and grandkids. All our grandkids are here today. All 4. There are not a lot of people that can say their grandkids are in church with them. I know a lot of people that can't say that. I learned how to do that because my grandparents took me to church. They passed their legacy on to me, their good legacy, and I'm passing it on to somebody else. So I just want you today to search your heart and take a moment to think about the legacy that you're going to leave behind when you leave this world, because one day you'll leave this world. Without a doubt, you're going to leave this world. All those people on that list, all those godly men who talked to one another and spread the word, they all died except for Enoch, who walked so close to God. And if you think you're holy enough to walk so close to God, try it. But all those men died. And one day we're all going to face that death. So what is it that people are going to see when they stand and look at a gravestone? Are they going to be able to stand and talk to the person next to them and say, that was one of the greatest Christian people I ever knew? See, that's what they do with my great-grandpa, with my grandmother. Not so many people do that with John Turner. So the choice is yours. What legacy are you going to leave? We got a lot of kids in this room, and we got a lot of parents here. And I need you to search your heart. God's demanding that you search your heart because he's visiting you today. I don't know if it's the third generation out. I don't know if it's the fifth generation out, but God's visiting you today. So what's it going to be? You're going to pass on a legacy of Christ? Or are you going to pass on a legacy that people don't want to talk about, like Rahab? That choice is yours. The ball's in your court. I've done my part. Now it's yours. It's your turn to do the right thing. I want you to just take a moment and think about the legacy you want to leave behind. And if this legacy that you're leaving behind is not what you want to leave, you can change it today. You can ask the Lord into your heart, and you can make him Lord of your life. If you choose to do so, you can leave here today with a great legacy. That's the good news.